There's a job in Lagos, Nigeria that most people never see. Every morning while the city awakes, there are men who descend into complete darkness beneath the water, holding their breath, digging and surfacing, carrying buckets of sand on their heads. Then they dive again. These are the sound divers of Lagos Lagoon. They work without equipment, without oxygen tank, without light, just their lungs and their hands. But here is what doesn't make sense. With all the technology that we currently have, why would anyone still do this? Why would there be men risking their life diving blind into polluted water to dig sand by hand? Why machine exists that could do this work? The answer to this question reveals something uncomfortable about how cities actually get built. And it starts with understanding what sand really is in Lagos. It's not just the resources, but currency, power, and survival all mixed together. Let's start with what actually happens under the water. A sand diver shift starts early, before dawn breaks over the Lagos Lagoon. The water is calm then. The boat are already being positioned at the diving sites. These are not random spots. The divers know where the sand deposits are richer. This knowledge is passed down through years of experience. The diver will stand at the edge of the boat. He will take several deep breaths, hyperventilating to saturate his blood with oxygen, then goes under. Beneath the surface of the Lagos Lagoon, visibility is zero. Water carries sewage, industrial runoff, and decades of accumulated waste. The divers cannot see even his own hand in front of his face. He navigates entirely by touch and memory. He swims down about 10 to 20 feet to the bottom. By this time, his lungs will have already started burning. The pressure built in his ear and chest. When he reaches the sand bed, he began to dig with his bare hand, scooping sand into the metal bucket he carries down with him. This is harder than it sounds. Sand underwater doesn't behave like sand on the beach. It is dense, water-clogged and heavy. Each sandful requires effort. The divers fill his buckets while his oxygen is reducing. Most can stay down between 60 to 90 seconds. When the bucket is full or when his lung forces him up, he surfaces. He lifts the bucket, which weighs around 50 kilograms when full, onto his head. He climbs the side of the boat and empties the sand into the vessel. Then he dives again. A sand diver can make 80 to 100 dives in a single day. Some days even more. The work doesn't stop until the boat is full, and a typical boat can hold between 25 to 40 tons of sand. That is roughly 500 to 800 buckets. If 5 or 6 divers are working together, they might fill a boat in 6 to 8 hours, then move to the next location and start again. The physical toll of this work is immediate and accumulative. The repeated pressure changes causes chronic ear problems. Many divers develop hearing losses by their 30s. The polluted water leads to skin irritation, skin infection, eye disease, and respiratory issues. The Nigerian Institution of Medical Research has documented cases of waterborne diseases among lagoon workers. But here is what might make you pause. These men are not desperate amateurs. They are not doing this because they do not know better. They are skilled professionals. Many have been diving for 10, 15, and even 20 years. They have calculated the risks. They know exactly what this job costs them. So why do they keep diving?
What's your name?
David.
So this job you do, what is it called?
It's called Japta.
So what's Japta?
Japta is a work. It's just like the work we are doing now. It's a hard labor that we do to make money.
So how are you paid? Like how much do you make?
Like this 1 canoe now is 150.
To offload it or to offload it
To
or
offload it.
just to offload it?
Yes, but to dig it is 400.
So how much have you made today?
I've made 4,000.
4,000.
Yes.
So how many kilos have you offloaded?
No, I dig. I have to dig.
So how much is digging?
Digging is 400.
Wow.
So if you dig and offload it by yourself, that is 500.
Lagos is one of the fastest growing cities in Africa. Current estimates put the population at over 50 million people, though some researchers suggest it could be as high as 21 million. The exact number is debated because Lagos grew faster than anyone can count. By 2050, according to UN projection, Lagos could be home to more than 32 million people. That will make it the third largest city in the world. All of these people need places to live. They need roads to drive on. They need buildings to work in. And all of that requires sand. Sand is the most consumed natural resources on Earth after water. The UN Environmental Programme estimated in their 2019 reports that the world uses approximately 40 to 50 billion tons of sand and grains annually. It is in our concrete, our glass, our electronics. Modern civilization is built on sand. But not all sand are created equally. Desert sand doesn't work for construction because the grains are too smooth and worn out by wind. They cannot bind together. Construction requires sand with rough grain, the kind shaped by water. River sand, lake sand, ocean sand, and in Lagos, lagoon sand. The Lagos lagoon system is extensive. It stretches over 6,354 square kilometers. It includes the main lagoon, small connected lagoons like the Epe and Lekki, and several waterways. Beneath all this water lies an enormous deposit of the exact kind of sand that builders need. This makes the lagoon very valuable, and it makes sand diving profitable. A single boat of sand sells around 200 to 350 Nigerian naira, depending on the quality and location. That is roughly around 130 to 230 US dollars. The sand dealers, which is the men who owns the boat and employs the divers, keep most of that money. The divers earn between 30 to 50,000 naira per day, or $2 to $3. So for risking their life repeatedly, for diving blind into polluted water 8 times a day, for destroying their earrings and their heads, sand divers earn less than a cost of a coffee in New York. But here is the economic reality that keeps them diving. $2 to $3 a day is still more than many available jobs in Lagos. A 2024 report by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that Nigerian unemployment rate stood at 5%, but youth unemployment was significantly higher, and underemployment affects over 30% of the workforce. For men without advanced education or technical skills, steady work is scarce. Sand diving paid daily, in cash, no contracts, no paperwork, no waiting for monthly salary that may not come. For someone with a family to feed, that daily certainty matters more than a long-term health risk. And the demand never stops. Drive around any neighborhood in Lagos and you will see construction sites, new apartment buildings, new shopping centers, new roads being paved. Banana Island, which is one of the most expensive residence areas in Lagos, was built on land reclaimed from the lagoon, using million tons of sand. Eco Atlantic, an ambitious city being built on reclaimed land next to Victoria Island, will eventually require an estimated 90 million cubic meters of sand. Every gain of that sand has to come from somewhere, and right now, most of it comes from men holding their breath underwater. But this creates a question that the Lagos government have been struggling with for years. If sand diving is so dangerous, why not ban it and use mashing instead?
We have a department here, the dredging department, that looks after that. And it's all about standardization, regulations, where we have our law that put up waterfront infrastructure development ministry as a part of it that give us the power to regulate by enforcing that all the stakeholders and partakers in this sector of our business, they carry out their operations according to laid down regulations by government. And all we do is to enforce that they carry out these regulations and they do things according to laid down rules. That's all. We have our task force, our part of the enforcement sector of the dredging department and the monitoring department. They go around the state, all over the state. They have their own different sectors of the state, and they man their own sector of the state and monitor it and make sure that those people that are practicing dredging and that are mining sand in water, that they are really monitored to carry out their practice according to laid down rules.
The Nigerian government has tried to regulate sand mining multiple times. The Lagos State Ministry of Environment has issued several directives over the years, attempting to control draining activities in the lagoon. Some sand mining operations have been shut down. Permits are theoretically required. Environmental impact assessments are supposedly mandatory, but in practice, enforcement is inconsistent. Part of the problem is economic. Mechanical draining equipment, the machine that could replace human divers, requires significant capital investments. A small drainer might cost between tens of thousands of dollars. Larger operation requires hundreds of thousands of dollars. The sand dealers who operate divers often don't have that kind of capital, and even if they did, the math doesn't always work out. So mechanical draining is more efficient at scales, but it is also more visible and easier to regulate. It requires permits, inspection, and fees. A man with a bucket of sand in the water is nearly invisible. It could work in a shallow area that machine could not reach. It doesn't need fuel or maintenance, it just needs to be willing to dive. Banning sand diving without providing alternative employment would simply push thousands of men into even more desperate situation. The Lagos State government knows this, so the practice continues, officially discouraging but practically tolerable. Another reason the sand keeps flowing is corruption. Nigeria ranked 145 out of 180 countries on Transparency International 2023 Corruption Perspective Index. In sectors involving natural resources and government contracts, enforcement of regulation often depends more on unofficial payments than official rules. If a sand diver has the right connection and can pay the right people, his divers keep working regardless of the rule. It is not unique to Lagos or Nigeria. It is a pattern repeated across developing countries worldwide. When demand for construction materials outpaces legal supply, informal extraction fills the gap. It happens with sand in India, where illegal sand mining has become a multi-billion-dollar criminal empire. It happens in Vietnam, where rivers are being drained to the extent that bridges are being collapsed from undermined foundations. It happens in Morocco, where the entire beach has been stripped bare. The difference in Lagos is that women are dying by hand, what machines do elsewhere. And that raises the question about the future. How long can this actually continue? While sand divers work, the Lagos Lagoon itself is changing. The Lagos Lagoon is or was an ecosystem. It once supports thriving population of fish, crabs, and other aquatic life. Fishing communities around the Lagos Lagoon has existed for generations, long before the city grew to surround them. These communities are now watching their livelihood disappear. Because are multiple, pollution from industrial waste and untreated sewage has made part of the Lagos Lagoon toxic. But sand mining accelerates the damage. When sand is removed from the lagoon floor, it doesn't grow back. The underwater topology changes, water flow differently, fish breeding grounds are disrupted. A 2020 study published by the Journal of Coastal Conservation examined the impact of sand mining on coastal ecosystem in Nigeria. The researchers found that intensive sand extraction alternates water depth and destroys habitats for the bottom-dwelling organisms that form the basis of aquatic food web. Fish catches decline in areas near active mining sites. The environmental damage extends beyond the lagoon. Sand mining affects the shoreline stability. The Lagos coastline is already vulnerable to erosion. Part of the city's lost meters of beach to the ocean each year.
Alpha Beach, one of the many beaches along the coastal axis of Lagos. It houses several communities, some of which had been displaced over time due to the gradual erosion of the soil by surges from the ocean. or sometimes by human activities such as dredging and excavation of sharp sand from the coastal line.
My name is Chief Mambano Shamsidin, the Chief Imam of Alpha Beach. Between like 3 months, 2 months, they have approached many houses and sent us away. Then when we call government, tell government that this thing is happening here, they start to come and put this stone here, they want to take us to airport. But when they stop this stone again, the water starts to becoming more and more. Then after like 2 months to this time now, June, July, August now, they have sent many buildings away again and washed many buildings away. Then look at where they stopped the stone. Look now, this is the place they stopped the stone before. After they stopped the place that they have pushed again. They are roughly 100 meters again.
Today, like many, he believes the erosion has become more frequent because of the groins made to protect the Eco-Atlantic City, an entire new coastal city being built on Victoria Island, adjacent to Lagos.
Remove sand from the underwater area and the erosion accelerates. Coast Guard communities faces flooding, building near the water become unstable. But here's the paradox. The same sand that is destroying the lagoon is also being used to protect against sand level rises. Eco-Atlantic, for example, is partially justified as a buffer against coastal flooding. They are mining the lagoon to build wall against the ocean. They are solving one environmental problem by creating another. And none of this changes the fact that Lagos needs sand. The city is not going to stop growing. Construction is not going to stop. The demand is real and urgent. So we are left with a brutal question. Whose need matter most? The divers who need work, the fishermen losing their livelihood, the city that needs to house millions, or the ecosystem that is being destroyed? There is no clean answer, but there might be alternatives. Let's be clear, there are other ways of getting sand, and there are other things to build with besides sand. The most obvious alternative is importing sand from other regions. Nigeria has land-based sand deposits in various states. Properly regulated mining in less ecologically sensitive areas could supply Lagos construction's needs without destroying the lagoon. The challenge is transportation. Moving millions of tons of sand over land is expensive. It requires truck, fuel, and road. For many developers, lagoon sand remains cheaper despite the environmental cost. Another option is mechanized drilling, done efficiently. Modern drilling equipment can extract sand more efficiently while minimizing environmental damage. Environmental impact assessments can identify areas where extraction won't destroy critical habitats. Mutation systems can allow mining areas to recover. Countries like the Netherlands have strict regulations that manage sand extraction while preserving marine ecosystem. But implementing this requires strong regulatory institutions and political will. It requires funding for enforcement. It requires saying no to profitable but destructive practices. And that is harder than it sounds. Why millions of people need housing and jobs. Then there is a more radical option. Stop using so much sand. Engineers have been developing alternatives to concrete for years. In 2020, the Indian Institute of Technology developed a construction technique using industrial waste and minimized sand. In Switzerland, Zaha has created a concrete mixture that replaced 50% of sand with recycled materials. The technology exists. The barrier isn't technical, it's economic and social. Concrete is cheap, familiar, and trusted. Builders know how it works. Builders know how to work with it. Buyers know what they are getting. Alternative material requires training, certification, and cultural acceptance. That takes time that Lagos doesn't simply have. There is also a recycling option. Every time a building is demolished in Lagos, tons of concrete are added to a waste site. That concrete contains sand. It could be crushed, processed, and reused. Singapore recycles up to 98% of this construction waste. Japan has a sophisticated system for recycling and reclaiming building materials. Meanwhile, Lagos buries its construction waste and then sediment underground to dig for fresh sand. This alternative exists. The question is whether the incentive exists to implement them. And that brings us back to the divers themselves. Because in all this discussion about technology and policy and environmental protection, there's a group of people whose perspective we haven't fully considered yet. Here is something that might surprise you. Many sand divers don't want their job to disappear. While advocates, groups, and journalists suggest banking sand diving for safety reasons, some divers push back. Probably not because they love the job, but because they understand something that outside observers most often miss. This job is theirs. Over the years, divers have expressed a complex relationship with their job. Yes, it is dangerous. Yes, it destroys their heads. Yes, they earn far less than the value they create. But it is also automated work that doesn't require educational credentials they don't have. It's a work that connects them to communities of other divers. It is a work that, despite everything, they have experts in. This is a rational assessment of the limited option. When advocate group propose shutting down sand diving, divers ask, and what then? If the alternative is unemployment, the diving work starts to look more better by comparison. This is why top-down ban often fails. When you criminalize a survival strategy without providing a valuable alternative, people don't stop, they just act better. What will actually help divers isn't necessarily ending the job immediately, but improving their condition and creating pathway out. That might mean enforcing minimum wages and safety equipment requirements. If sand dealers were required to provide diving mark, bathing equipment and protection gear, the work would become safer immediately. Some would comply, but even partial compliance helps. Providing health insurance or subsidized medical care. Many divers can afford to treat the injury or illness the work causes. A clinic specifically serving naval waters could catch problem early and provide preventive care. Offering training on mechanical building operations instead of replacing divers with machine. Train divers to operate the machine. This preserves their employment while improving safety and efficiency. Creating alternative employment program. If ex-divers could get trainings in other trades like welding, carpentry, electrical work with guaranteed job placements, many would take it. But the training has to be free, the job has to be real, and the payment has to be comparable. None of this is revolutionary. These are basic labor protection that exist in many industries worldwide. These are basic labor protection that exists in many industries worldwide. The barrier is implementation in a context where informal work is a law and enforcement is weak. There is no satisfying conclusion to this story. The sand divers are still diving. The lagoon is still being mined. Lagos is still growing. And the fundamental tension between development and environment, between economic need and human safety, between profit and dignity remain unsolved. Lagos could enforce existing safety regulation and require sand divers and require sand dealers to provide basic protection equipment. That is technically simple, politically harder. It requires inspectors who cannot be bribed and penalties that matters. Nigeria could invest in alternative construction materials and sustainable sand extraction method that require funding and technical experts, both of which are available if made a priority. These are few of the things that we can start doing, even if they won't change things immediately, but it is a start. Because here is what the sand divers of Lagos Lagoon ultimately show us. The world we build is built by someone. The materials that make our modern life possible come from somewhere, and the people who extract those materials, who dig and dive for those materials, are making choices within constraints we never face. The least we can do is see them, to acknowledge that this work exists, that it matters, and that the people doing it deserve better than what they are getting. Not pity, not charity, but decent pay, safe condition, and real alternative. The sand divers will keep diving until something changes. The question is, who is going to change it? The government, the sand dealers, the consumers, international pressure, economic development, or technological innovation? Or will it be the divers themselves organizing, demanding, refusing to accept the unacceptable? We don't know how the story ends, but we know how it continues, with men holding their breath, diving into darkness, carrying the weight of the city on their head. Bucket by bucket, dive by dive, until something has to give industry.